Start Over Strong, Life After a DUI, a podcast for people, not offenders. Brought to you by Smart Start, the nation's most trusted, judgment-free ignition interlock provider.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Smart Start's Stigma Free IID podcast. I'm your co-host, Morgan Ryan.
And I'm Izzy Varela.
Today, we are having a roundtable discussion on responsible use with marijuana. We're going to talk all things perspective and opinion on this substance as it becomes more legal in more states nationwide. Wanted to welcome one of our favorite guests back to the show, Mr. Steve. Welcome back to Stigma Free IID.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for Smart Start.
I'm a retired Washington State Trooper after 25 years. Currently, I am the Vice President of Field Sales for Smart Start.
Wonderful. And Izzy, tell us a little bit about Smart Start and what we do here.
So absolutely, we are the global leader in IIDs. We are the empathy, the stigma-free company. Our model allows for you to start your DWI journey with one step forward, working with our experienced program advisors to really help you understand the nuances of your state and your particular situation. That way you're able to get through the process as quickly as possible and go back to unrestricted driving.
And thank you, Izzy. Let's get right into this roundtable discussion. I'd like to focus this conversation today specifically on weed gummies. We understand that we've had many conversations on cannabis in general, but weed gummies specifically and everything that means, right? The barriers being broken down because you have a very easily consumable product, all of those things. And I want to talk specifically first about, can a weed gummy be used responsibly? So obviously opinions on cannabis vary dramatically depending on what state you live in and what your experience is, your age, your culture, your profession, what you do. And then I think even between the three of us, we do all have different opinions and perspectives on weed gummies and marijuana use specifically. So Izzy, I want to start with you first. Can weed gummies be used responsibly?
I think they can. I think for me as a father, I worry more about the impact on my children. I personally do not like or use weed gummies. Does not mean I want people to not have the freedom. I think as an adult, being in the United States, they should have the ability to have informed decisions and use if they want to. I think people should have the opportunity to use them recreationally or medically without a whole lot of issue. But I think responsible use is the most important to me. It's just like alcohol or other substances that, if not used responsibly, can lead to bigger problems, both on the road and for individual use. My perspective is I want to protect my kids. That's the most important thing. I want my kids to make informed decisions. I want them to not consume for the longest time we can go. So I take the perspective as a father, not trying to inhibit anyone else's rights. But at the same time, I think there needs to be responsible use, and I think people should be held accountable for irresponsible use.
Okay. Steve, what's your opinion?
I think they cause impairment, obviously. I think there is a use for them outside of that, but we have to be very cautious of what they can do impairment-wise. And that can be driving in a car. It can be domestic. It could be lots of different things. Usually, gummies are associated with other things. Alcohol could be, as we talked about in the past, polydrug use. And so the fact that it could lead to something bad, and coming from the law enforcement side and seeing that almost, a lot of the calls that we go to are impairment related, whether it's in a vehicle or domestic or whatever it may be, there's impairment involved. And so it does lead to other things.
Yep. And I think it's no surprise. I've spoken pretty outwardly about my personal position. In many ways, I am confused. I struggle with this as a mom and as someone that, I'm a regular person in society. I consume the cool things, whatever that means. And for me, I fall somewhere in the middle. I do, having been the ex-partner of someone that struggled with alcohol addiction, I wish we would have had access to weed gummies. I wish that we could have tried that to get him off of that alcohol addiction at some point. He was also in the military, and so I think we could have used some of that to help with things like PTSD and some pain that he was going through. I also believe firmly that if it's used responsibly, it can be a good thing. I'm very much against using any substance to cope. We need to rip those problems out root and stem. I'm someone who pushes for daily deliverance and things like working out and Pilates and understanding how you can set goals and achieve goals in the most healthy way. I also lastly believe that marijuana as a substance cannot and should not be treated differently than alcohol, especially in states where it is obviously legal. As a society, we have to understand that and come behind that, and support those who are using it recreationally or medicinally. That brings me to really my next point, which is pain relief, and recreational use. One thing that really complicates this conversation is that not everyone is using weed gummies, right, for the same reason.
Correct.
I've seen advertisements targeted specifically towards me as a mom to put the wine glass down and just cut this gummy in half and have a great night, right? To deal with your kids. And so, Izzy, I want to talk specifically about weed gummies, THC, CBD, and the products that we see in the market now.
Yeah, you're seeing it everywhere. I think the marketing of it has evolved, just like whenever any kind of product becomes mainstream or popular, is it's marketed in different ways for different appeals for different people. So chronic pain is a big one. Sleep, anxiety recovery. I know personally, my grandfather's 95 years old. Recreational marijuana is allowed in New Mexico where he resides. He uses CBD and THC. This man never used a drug in his life until he was in his 90s. He suffers from severe back pain, severe joint pain. He's had a knee replacement. He's had a shoulder replacement. And this has helped him. It helps him sleep. The pain medication that he was on before was really bad for his stomach. He couldn't eat. He had no appetite. And it's helped him. So the quality of life's improved. But, I think at 95 with that many surgeries, you kind of earned the right for that type of thing. And I think that's the appeal for a lot of people, is that it can help with chronic pain. It can help with sleep. It can help with anxiety. It can help for recovery. But I think it's very specific as a use case for some people. I think broadly, some people are trying to use it as an excuse to consume it more widely. And that's what the marketing kind of approach is it can fix all. And I'm not sure that that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, what a great perspective from our pro responsible use marijuana opinion. And that's great. Steve, in your experience, because I know you've got some stories about some of the elderly using the marijuana.
Yes, and most of my experience, obviously, it was before gummies. It was actually them, smoking it. But the gummies came on kind of towards the end of my career as a new element. And I think one of the things people forget is it's just like anything else, right? You take that gummy and you get that a little bit of a high, and you want a little more, and then everything seems better. And so, I can drive. I can do this. And
Even
so,
if it's a golf cart in a retirement
yes,
community.
I have been in a pursuit with a drunk person on a golf cart.
This
Yes,
is
I have. So
Tell me the story. Time out. Okay, I want to hear it. I want to hear the story.
It was a stolen golf cart, and we were on the freeway, and we were going, I think, 8 miles an hour. And so,
A
an
stolen golf
individual
cart
who was
on the freeway.
highly impaired stole a golf cart, and I chased him. Well, I didn't say chased him. I drove behind him with my lights and siren.
And idol, basically.
Until we were forced him off the off ramp of the roadway. Yes, but he was so impaired, he really didn't know where he was coming from, and his substances were more than.
Was he headed to Taco Bell?
I don't know where he was headed to. He did want to get. Did have a final destination, but he was on a little bit more than marijuana, and so he didn't even know where he was. And so, but those elements come on. I just think. Izzy's example, I think that's a great example where something can be used. And I think that's, medically, if it can help them live a better life, I think that's great. Unfortunately, I've seen all the bad things, and those come back. And so people be responsible, as we talked about in the past, is be responsible what you're doing, whether it's alcohol or gummies. But, you take that one, you take the next one, you take the next one. And remember, when you take one before you get in the car, you're going to have the impact when you get in the car, or you're taking the kids somewhere. And just remember, anytime you're with your family or any of your friends, you don't know what's going to happen. Right. You don't know what that next call is going to be. You don't know when you're going to, one of your family members, I had a situation where my wife, had a heart attack. And what are you going to do? If you're impaired, how are you going to respond to that? Yeah. And so I think those are all things you think about when you delve into impairment.
Yeah. And that's, again, a beautiful summation from a state trooper perspective. And I love that. I think one of my personal stories when we talk about gummies in particular and consumption around family or with family or people who have real problems, my sister-in-law, very recently, I was there on Easter, and she suffers from crippling anxiety and depression. And she's, in a state where it is legal to consume marijuana. She does have a medical card for it. And she was trying this new drink with, marijuana or THC. And she had never had it before. It was a new brand. And so she thought, I'm going to cut what I normally do in half. So she, measured it out and everything and had it in the glass. And we were playing Uno. And before you know it, there she goes. Like, we just watched her take off. And it was like, see you on the other side. Godspeed to you.
Jeez.
Because it was so much stronger than even what she was used to. But I remember when she finally came back to us, we said, welcome back, sweetheart. You've been sitting in that chair for 4 hours. And she was so frustrated though, because she measured it and it said what it said on the can, but just between those two brands, there was a difference. Even though she had cut her normal amount in half. And so it was great for all of us, but that delayed effect was very dangerous. So, okay, let's talk about the delayed effect problem. When you talk about edibles, okay, we need to talk about this because I think consumption, metabolism, water content, all that we don't really understand, but we do understand some of it. So, Steve, can you walk me through delayed onset risk?
I mean, it's with all impairment, there's that delay. So as we just had talked about, when anytime you're going to get in a vehicle or put yourself in that circumstances, you may take it now and it's like, oh, I didn't have an effect on me, so I'm going to take another one, right? And just like you described, before you know it, that person is
long gone.
Long gone. It's compounding, and we have to remember that anytime any substance you're taking is that, and then you want more. So then you get that extra, and it's like, well, I want to feel that again. So how am I going to get that? So I'm going to take a little bit more, and you still have these other things in your system. And you brought up a point is, you take this gummy, but maybe you're taking this other gummy over here. You don't know the effects of that gummy, right? A different manufacturer came from someone else, has a different level in it. And now, I'm going to put that on top, right? So now you have this, it doesn't take effect. So I'm going to take this and try to make it better.
Yeah.
And just, it's like any prescription drugs, so taking on top of it. It's the same relevance we had. You got to be careful.
Izzy, I mean, what does responsible use look like for gummies when we know these things?
It's tough. It's relative to the person, honestly, right? So I think that's one of the biggest problems is that even though these things are manufactured more and more scientifically in more controlled places, and you feel like people are being more responsible with the creation of these products, is that it still treats the individual different. I mean, there's basics. I mean, you should absolutely know your dosage, weight appropriately. I mean, absolute weight appropriately. Like give yourself time because you don't know the onset of that product and how it's going to affect you. And avoid driving. Again, like your situation, your sister-in-law was in a safe place with family members, right? What's a better situation than that if you're going to do something? And she still didn't have the greatest experience. So for me, I think those are the types of situations where people are starting to partake. They should be nowhere near the wheel. They should be with, as Steve calls them, like a designated friend, right? And those situations will keep you safe. But it's just, there's so many variables by product, by person, by timing, by everything, right? So I think you take some basic steps. You're in a safe place with people that you trust, and you know that for that night you're not going to get behind the wheel of a car.
Yeah, I think too, tolerance and confidence is a big one because I mean, even at my age, I've consumed alcohol in my life. I'm not against alcohol. And if it's been like 6 months since I've had a drink and then I have a cocktail at brunch, I mean, I can wait all I want, but I know immediately that this is hitting me differently, right? And it's respecting, I think, and understanding that as adults, we still might not even understand our tolerance. And the same is true for females going through their 28-day cycle because you've got progesterone, you got estrogen. Your body is changing even within that 28 days. And I've been living that 28 days for many years. And then we think about our kids who really don't understand their tolerance. But there's also that false sense of confidence that being buzzed and substances will lead to.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. I think even myself as someone in my late 40s, right? The time I'm delayed from drinking, I do drink alcohol, but I've cut back significantly now. And so the effect of one drink is completely different than what it used to be on me.
Right.
If I worked out that day, if I ate well, if I slept well, my stress level, so much, right? So what I do is I wait to see how that first drink is going to affect me before I make another decision.
Go slow.
Yeah, and then for our kids, absolutely, right? Their minds are not formed. They don't know what they're doing yet. And I think, the way that they consume alcohol, the sugar content on it, everything else that they're doing, that's a big thing, right? So it's tough to really understand how that is. It's a much different era than it was when we began drinking. When I began drinking at 16, 17 was acceptable. that is not an acceptable age anymore,
I know.
right? And those are things that we all have to consider, and we have to really guide our kids through.
Yeah, that reminds me too, just to our viewers and listeners, check that episode because Izzy breaks down the truth statistically about parents who allow their kids to drink at a young age thinking that they're helping them. And the statistics are harrowing. They're absolutely harrowing. Steve, you talk a lot about mixing and you're very much anti-mixing substances. And I know your background and experience and the things that you have endured, the things you've seen and witnessed has contributed to that opinion. Talk to me about why this is a bad thing and any stories that you can share.
It is a bad thing, and I just briefly, the both of you, having very young kids, and Izzy having teenage boys, I can't imagine having teenage boys in today's world,
Right.
and all the things that are bringing to them, and it's that multi-impairment. I think there's, Ambien, during my career, Ambien came out and everybody was, oh, Ambien. And, it's a funny story, but we had a completely naked semi-driver crash into a barrier and go off an overpass.
I know a story about someone on Ambien who,
Wow.
yeah.
So Ambien is, we've had, so not that Ambien, you have gummies, you have Ambien, all these things that are out there exposing our everyone to that. So I think the biggest thing I talked about is just be careful. There's tons of stories. I could tell you lots of stories. For some reason with Ambien, people walk around naked. That's I don't know, they get out of bed or what happens. And
It's
we
not
would,
just tequila makes you
No,
feel
The
it
like
story
could've
I
been-
know
it
is
could've
of
been a
someone on
gummy
Ambien.
alcohol
They went
night.
to the grocery store
Yes.
naked to
Yes.
buy blueberries.
Exactly.
And
It
were
is-
arrested in the parking lot. Like, it's true. No clothes on.
So anytime you take substances and mix them together, no matter what they are,
Yes.
right? It's going to result in either a funny story or something really, really bad. And please don't think that it's not going to happen to you, because it can happen to you and it can happen to your family. And the biggest thing for me is, we want y'all to be safe and go home at night or the day, or you want to have those Memorial Day weekends and those 4th of Julys and those happy times
Safe.
together as a family safely. So, designate your friend.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Izzy, my responsible use friend, walk through all of them. Tell me how we can consume this stuff responsibly.
There's a lot, and I guess again, I want to really emphasize it's up to the individual. Know yourself, know the people, know your loved ones, but absolutely know your dosage, how much you're consuming. Avoid mixing substances, which is a big one, as Steve has said. Do not get anywhere near a vehicle to drive. Make sure you have planned transportation available. We've talked about ride shares and how critical that is. I know that's not available everywhere. If you need to stay somewhere, somewhere. Plan ahead. That's absolutely the most important thing. There's situations I can think of both in my youth and in my early adulthood where I got into situations that were hard, is when I did not plan ahead, where I said to myself, I'll figure it out at that point, right? And then you become desperate to get home, you make poor decisions. Those are the things you have to really consider. If you plan ahead, you're going to be in a much better situation. Understand your personal limits. I know that's really tough. Sometimes you get to a point where you consume more and you don't make smart decisions, but you should know ahead of time, hey, I'm going to this situation. I'm going to be here. I'm not going to have more than 2. And if I do drink anything, I'm going to call a ride share. Recognize onset delayed effects. That takes a while. And then have respect, in particular for marijuana. Take it seriously. That's a big thing. Like, there's not a lot of times in my life where I could think of, man, I made a poor decision consuming THC in one form or another in my early teens or late 20s or early 20s was probably some of the scariest situations I've ever been in.
Sure.
So I think you have to respect the drug, whether it's legal or not legal.
Yeah, great advice from Steve. Great advice from Izzy. I think my primary advice is to slow down and to not let marketing convince you that something is safe and harmless, because it's certainly not the case. Thank you for joining our episode today with Smart Start's Stigma Free IID. I am Morgan Ryan.
And I'm Izzy Varela.
If you or your loved one find yourself in a situation where you have a DUI and you need an ignition interlock device or a car breathalyzer, we believe in Smart Start's program. You can visit www.smartstartinc.com and get your first 2 payments free with coupon code STIGMAFREE.
Or call 844-766-0156 so you can get your free advice on your own personal DUI journey.
Thank you for joining the show today. I'm Morgan Ryan.
And I'm Izzy Varela.
Until next time, stay safe,
drive
drive
smart.
smart.